All right, why don't we jump right into it with Nvidia no longer selling 3000 series cards direct online. So this was originally posted by PC Mag and Tom's Guide. And basically, if you wanted to buy an Nvidia Founders Edition card, well,
I guess you're just out of luck.
because Nvidia is not going to be selling them on Nvidia.com. The only way to get one will apparently be through Best Buy in the USA, with international outlets not yet revealed. You know what? That's not as surprising as you might think, because as I recall, when Nvidia first introduced their Founders Edition cards, which would have been...
Was that 700?
Maxwell? Oh, was it before that? Dang, I can't remember when they transitioned from Founders Edition, or from reference cards to Founders Edition cards.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Was it 900 series or 1000? Must have been Maxwell. I don't know. Maybe it was before that, actually. Was it 680? Ah, yeah, I don't remember. But Nvidia did experiment with making those cards exclusively available at Best Buy. That was one of the first. In fact, I think that was before they were even selling direct on Nvidia.com. I believe Best Buy was the first place that you were able to get a built by Nvidia card. And I remember it being like a big hubbub in the industry because AMD famously transitioned from building built by ATI at the time, built by ATI cards, so you could buy like a first party card, to no longer providing those and leaning on their add-in board partners. And then Nvidia, who had traditionally never provided a built by Nvidia card and had always had add-in board partners, now was all of a sudden transitioning to their own built by Nvidia cards, these Founders Edition cards. And there was a whole bunch of upset about, well, okay, Nvidia is just trying to trying to grab even more margin for themselves, because if there's anywhere from 5 to 8% profit in a card like an RTX 3080, let's say, for example, at each the add-in board partner and the retailer level, well, hey, that's Nvidia effectively making anywhere from 10 to 15% more per card on the ones that they sell for themselves. So it creates a bit of a conflict of interest, because if Nvidia's partners are relying on them to fairly distribute allocation of these hot chips that everybody wants, and are basically like printing money at this point, like the more of them Nvidia can make, the more money everyone in the ecosystem can make. And Nvidia is the one responsible for doing it. So if they have this incentive to take them all for themselves and just sell them themselves for more profit, then, why would they send, MSI or Asus or EVGA's full allocation to them? Why wouldn't they just hold some back for themselves? Yeah. So Best Buy has been
one quick thing just to insert. Apparently it happened a lot later than I remember it happening. I think that's just because the visual style didn't change much, but it was 1000 series cards.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I guess that does kind of make sense. Okay.
Once I saw the article, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I thought it happened earlier than that.
Yeah, I thought there was one before that too. I thought there was like a 760 or something like that, like much earlier.
I thought it was 700 series as well, so maybe we're tripping on something, but I'm finding articles about like, what the heck is a Founders Edition card? And they're talking about the 1070 and 1080.
Got it. Okay. Well, there you go. Okay, why don't we have a look? So why would Nvidia stop selling themselves? Because like I said, obviously they make another, 5 to 7 or maybe even 8% profit if they just sell the Founders Editions through their own website. The reason is that they have basically thrown in the towel and said, well, we just can't, shucks, we just can't figure out how to do this without letting the bots get all the graphics cards. So we're going to leave it to the professionals here. And it wouldn't surprise me if in the future, Nvidia went back to selling Founders Editions through their own site once the demand dies down a little bit. But for now, they're going to leave it to Best Buy, because Best Buy has been overall a more reliable storefront for card sales when compared to Nvidia. Although it should be noted that that's not by a huge margin. A recent restock saw Best Buy's 3080 Founders Edition card staying available for only several minutes. So none of this is the ideal situation for Nvidia, but if they're gonna come out and say that they want to make an earnest effort to eliminate bots, or not eliminate, but minimize the effects of bots and scalpers on availability of RTX 3000 series cards, then they're going to have to put their money where their mouth is and take a bit of a hit to their profit in order to make sure that customers are actually getting their cards. It'll be really interesting to see how all of these shortages play into AMD's upcoming launch. I mean, we know Big Navi is coming in the coming weeks here, and it wouldn't surprise me, based on what AMD has done for their past cards, if we saw a hard launch with availability. And if AMD manages to pull that off and they're even remotely competitive,
they might get a lot of sales just because people can't even buy the other things.
Yeah, just because Nvidia can't ship a graphics card to save their life.
It's a pretty interesting concept, but I could definitely see it. Like I know I have a few friends that are looking to get 3000 series cards, and they've been struggling and not succeeding. So it's interesting.
This is a great comment from Ninja Man Away over on Floatplane. I've never understood why people would buy a Founders Edition card rather than a third-party card when the third-party cards are normally better. Wonderful comment. So there's a couple of things here. The Founders Edition, or back in the day, the Reference Edition cards, were typically the minimum but still decent board spec to build a graphics card based on that GPU. They'd have no frills or extra gimmicks or anything like that. Typically no RGB lighting, no factory overclock to speak of, because they were meant to be representative of the Nvidia approved experience.
One thing, if I can insert, is also before this generation, and I guess before this generation, because of the swoop swap, they were also blowers.
Yes.
Which in some cases people really wanted that due to certain airflow restrictions, etc. Sorry, keep going.
So if you had a small form factor case back in the GTX 1000 days, then you might have wanted a Founders Edition style card, because it's the only way to keep your other components from getting suffocated. With RTX 2000, that option went away anyway, and Nvidia's Founders Editions moved to a two-fan, whatever the opposite of a blower style is. So the one that just recirculates hot air in your case. It's escaping me at the moment. Doesn't matter. It's really not the point.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was with RTX 2000. Now with RTX 3000, Nvidia has actually positioned the Founders Edition cards as less of a baseline for performance and more as a premium option, making them not only priced higher than the cards that you would buy from the likes of an Asus or MSI or whatever else. Actually, last gen they were priced higher. I think Founders Edition has always been more expensive, just because that cooler costs so much to make.
The 1000 series was, I think, $100 higher on the 80, and I think it was $60 or $75 higher on the 70.
So they're not only priced higher because of their fancy, pretty cooler, but Nvidia put a ton of work into making the RTX 3000 Founders Edition cards really awesome, actually. There's a couple things here. One, the first-party Nvidia cards did not have any of those black screening issues that plagued some RTX 3000s. And two, the cooler on them is actually outstanding. The way that it not only helps keep the card cool, but also helps cool your system. And I don't have any third-party confirmation of this, but what it looks like to me is that Nvidia is creating yet another rift with their partners by offering cards that their partners don't have any realistic expectation of properly competing with. Did you see Nvidia's video about what went into the design of the thermal solution for the RTX 3080?
Yeah, and I do also agree with what you're saying. It's an interesting position, and I think it's a much more attractive play to people purchasing cards than previous Founders Editions offerings.
Absolutely. But what happened was they gave themselves an extremely unfair advantage.
Yes.
Nvidia, obviously, the way that those guys hold their cards so close to their chest, I pretty much guarantee you that their partners had the minimum minimum possible amount of time to work on their board designs for these new chips. Whereas Nvidia was sitting there with first-party knowledge throughout the entire development process of this product, knowing, okay, hey, we've got a 400-watt problem to solve. You know, how can we solve it? If I'm ASUS or if I'm EVGA or I'm Galax or whoever else, you know, I'm going, okay, sorry, what? I have a 400-watt problem to solve? Like, and I'm scrambling, right? Like I'm just putting a giant vapor chamber and a giant heatsink on it, and I'm otherwise going with a pretty traditional board design. If I'm Nvidia, I go and I create this fancy pants special angular board and this like flow through design for my cooler that nobody can reasonably be expected to compete with until they've had another probably 6 months, realistically, like 6 to 12 months to come out and build something similar to. And just like we've seen in previous generations, with all the minds that go into this at NVIDIA's add-in board partners, someone is going to create something that is super cool and totally unlike the reference or Founders Edition card. But if they don't have the time to do it, it's not reasonable to expect them to be able to. So at launch, man, the Founders Editions honestly look pretty good this time around, except that unfortunately with this announcement that Nvidia.com will no longer be selling them comes the unfortunate news that Europeans or anyone outside of the US who can't just walk into a Best Buy will simply not be able to buy them.
Oh my God.
Whoops.
I didn't think about that part.
Whoopsie daisies. DigiDude512 in Floatplane chat brings up another great reason why people like Founders Edition or reference cards, and that's that generally they're the first to get water block support because of how common they are compared to, say, a Strix or an Aorus card. With that said, the situation is totally improving. The first block we were able to get our hands on was actually an EK1 for an ASUS Strix RTX. That is for the 3090. Actually, it's compatible with the 3080 as well. Yeah, so I think they use the same board design, or at least EK thinks they do, and we did manage to put it on a 3090 with some small modifications. So it seems like it's getting quite a bit better, and so many of the board makers actually do their own water blocks now, like EVGA does, or they have partnerships with brands like EK, that it's less of an issue today than it used to be. So says, but the Founders Edition cards are not reference cards this year. Yes, that is true. The Founders Edition cards are not reference cards. To my knowledge, there isn't really a reference card that anyone outside of, maybe a board partner would have seen even.
Yeah.
All of the RTX 3080s and 3090s that I've seen from different manufacturers have been completely different boards. Unless I'm wrong, unless there is a reference board that I'm not aware of. So guys, feel free to let me know in the Floatplane chat.
I'm looking into it. I haven't heard of anything, and I don't see anything immediately. But yeah, so while the Founders Edition is not on a reference card, there is reference boards, and the 3080 and 3090 share reference board designs as confirmed by EK Waterblocks.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure who, if anyone, was using them though.
Yeah, not entirely sure, but
sweet.
Sounds like there is at least a reference board design.
Yeah, maybe the more basic cards. That makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for that.